First drafts are hard, especially if this is your first time tackling a novel.
Someone should tell her.
What am I doing? Nothing on how to complete the first draft, and that is the biggest hurdle that writers face.
You're kidding, right?
And talk about rough drafts. More specifically, how to get the rough draft down on paper in the most painless way possible.
What? What are you talking about, man?
Today, I'm here to share with you the secret trick that will help you fix your rough draft in 30 minutes or less. So, when you finished a rough draft, congratulations! You've done what so many people just talk about doing.
Someone should tell her.
But now what?
Today we are talking about editing. You should not send a messy first draft to a professional editor without working on it at least a little bit yourself.
When you start revising, you want to print your novel out in some different kind of format from how you wrote your first draft. So if it's on your computer, print it out so it's hard copy. If you wrote it by hand, consider typing it up on a computer and printing it out.
An idiot sandwich.
So what I did is I went ahead and I printed out a human first draft. So welcome. Thank you for coming.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
We're talking about how to write the first draft of your novel. Last week, we talked about how to write an outline using Save the Cat. And this week, we're going to put that outline into action. Along with your outline, you should have also already created some kind of character profile sheet for your main characters, as well as a setting research sheet. Personally, I think the first draft is the hardest to write. Writing a rough draft isn't hard.
Listen to me when I say they will never go away. Run, welcome to the jungle.
So part of my New Year's resolution for this year was to figure out how to actually do makeup, and I decided to start with the eyebrows. But it wasn't until I picked up the pencil that I realized with certain dread that I have no idea what I'm doing. So enjoy future videos of my Bushman eyebrows until I figure shit out. But yeah, writing a rough draft isn't hard. It's not easy, but it isn't hard. Now before I go into a tangent and before you jump down to the comments section, let's go through some of the reasons why you might be struggling through a rough draft. And we'll start with number one, because if this is your reason, you can completely disregard this entire video. That isn't your pace. You're not trying to get 30 books out. You are just focused on one project, or you're new at this and you're just starting out. So this isn't your pace yet. Usually you will get through the rough draft the fastest, and it should be the easiest part of the process. but you might not get there until you have a little more practice in, or maybe you're just a hobbyist, maybe you're just somebody that dabbles in it from time to time, and there's nothing wrong with that. And like I said, if that's the case, then don't worry about this video. Don't worry about rushing through your rough draft, and just take your time with it and have fun with it, however you please. Number 2, you let the idea sit too long. Rough drafts are meant to be written very, very fast so that you can cement the idea and the structure of the idea in your head. If you're picturing your book as a person, the rough draft would kind of be like the skeleton, and then with future drafts you kind of build upon that. But you can't really build upon anything that doesn't have some kind of skeletal source. You need some kind of foundation to build upon. Even if you have to alter the foundation a little bit, fix it, patch it up here and there, that's part of the process. But that's kind of what the drafting process is for, is continually changing everything throughout. If you let the idea sit too long, then you're going to suffer through what we call shiny new ideas syndrome, which is where, you know, the old ideas, whether it was 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago, 2 months ago, you let them sit too long and you're no longer as interested in them as you are the future projects that you are now currently thinking of, because new ideas tend to come faster than you can keep up. But it's very important to keep the juices flowing and to write it out as fast as possible. I can't tell you how many master of the craft writers say that the rough draft you want to get down as fast as possible in order to catch that spark, in order to catch that motivation and keep it bottled up as much as possible, so you don't have to worry about distractions as much. You kind of just want to get it over with. Which brings me to number 3. You're not writing a rough draft, you're editing. An attempt to skip the massive undertaking that is the drafting process. A lot of writers seem to want to get as much out as possible during the first draft. They're constantly revising, they're constantly editing, and they're constantly rethinking the details that they have already written for the story. Writers who want to skip the drafting process are considering drafting the most vital part of writing a story. I'd say it's more vital than editing. I would rather read a book that the author went over 30 times than read a book that was edited 5 times but only had as many drafts. The editor is not going to care as much as you are about the story structure, and they're not going to care about the plot holes. They're not really going to care about the character arcs and the redemption arcs, and their job is to kind of polish your work so that it looks professional enough to be sent into an agent or publisher. And if you're a writer who is planning on skipping the drafting process, then you're a lazy piece of shit who's probably going to end up contributing to one of many reasons of why books today suck as much as they do. Drafting is a necessary part, and if you can't get through the rough draft, you're not going to make it through the drafting process. Again, the rough draft is meant to be the cemented structure for your story. You're not going to be able to finish the story if you keep having to halt and constantly change things that later on down the line you're going to go back and end up changing again anyways. You need to get the structure down first, and then sit down and worry about the details. I don't even worry about the details for my story until I get to like the 4th or 5th draft, because I not only scrap the first draft, but I end up scrapping the 2nd, the 3rd, and sometimes the 4th draft in total, and I end up completely rewriting the entire thing. But during this drafting process, the idea and the plot is cemented so much in my memory that I'm able to kind of add details and switch around scenarios that might end up better going down a different direction. This is a very, very important step in writing, and I think that it is incredibly underrated. And I don't know why people seem to think that this process is so minuscule and that it's not as important. Or they think that they're a good enough writer that they shouldn't have to suffer through the drafting process. We can tell. And by we, I mean readers, who can usually pick out whether or not a story was seen through to its full potential or was even put through the effort of attempting to see through to its fullest potential. It usually comes off lazy, cheap, and nothing comes around full circle in the end. Half the time, there isn't even a point to the story. It is not the editor's job to worry about these things. It is your job. You are the writer. You are the one who has to do all the heavy lifting in these areas. Again, the editor is going to polish your work so that it doesn't look amateur to anyone. Number 4, stop writing 600-page rough drafts. What are you doing? Rough draft, or a 0 draft, whatever you want to call it, is a throwaway draft. Why are you subjecting yourself to the torture of writing 600 pages that you are literally just going to pitch into the trash? Limit your rough drafts to maybe 200 or 300 words max, because while you're going through this drafting process, you're going to constantly be slicing and dicing stuff out, but you're more so going to be adding more stuff in later. You're going to be adding more scenarios. Leave room for your story to actually grow and kind of grow with it. Don't force yourself to put 500, 600 pages because that's what's required in publishing today, and you don't want to have to worry about adding. Adding things in the drafting process is a lot easier than trying to cut stuff out, especially when you're just going to have to add more in later on anyways to make up for that page count. Number 5, 5, you're distracted. You're not actually sitting down to work. You're watching TV. You are on a Pomodoro live stream and you have to stop every 20 minutes so that you can talk about how much work that you got done when you were actually scrolling through Twitter. Or every 20 minutes you have to stop to go get coffee or a donut or switch coffee shops. Stop it. Sit down and get some damn work done. If you are easily distracted, I am planning on making a video on how to minimize those distractions. That should be up next week. I was actually going to be doing it this week, but since I couldn't get the rough draft idea out of my head for like the last 2 weeks, I decided to get this one done first and then do the minimize distractions next week. Especially since this week has been really tough, I felt like yelling at something. And finally, number 6. Your brain is not able to really keep up with the ideas every single time. You might consider this as writer's block. And I think writer's block is actually a side effect of something else. But if you're really trying to sit down and you've shut off all distractions and you've been sitting at your computer and you just cannot think of what comes next and you're struggling to put down sentence after sentence after sentence, and you just can't make yourself work, your brain might not be able to keep up with the pace with which you want to write. It could be because you're new, it could be because you're inexperienced, or it could just be because you're tired. I get this sometimes, and what I usually do is I go back to my roots. I switch to paper and pen. Not only does this take more work and it takes more effort, but it gives your brain kind of a chance to actually direct the story instead of just letting your fingers fly over the keys and forcing yourself to try to keep up. Think of your brain as actually just trying to lead the way instead of being strung along by a bullet train. Because I get this all the time too, but I never really got this until I started writing on my computer. Usually I would go to a cafe and have a paper in hand. I never ran out of ideas. I would be able to write 16, 30 pages, and yeah, it takes a lot of time, but the reason I was able to do it is because my brain would be leading. My brain would be telling me the story. I would just be the scripter. I'm just writing it down as it goes. Now, I'm a pantser. I don't know how this works for plotters, but I would imagine if you are also a planzer, and I happen to know that there are a lot of writers on here that are pantsers, this is a very, very good test just to give your brain a chance to just take a break. Your hands are going to cramp, you're going to get calluses, fucking deal with it. But if this is what you need, and if this is the kick in the ass that you actually need to get your story going, I think that it's worth giving it a shot. And I think that's about it for this video. I really just wanted to get it out because I needed to rant about it. It's been bugging me the past couple of weeks ever since I saw Jenna Moressi's video. And I love Jenna Moressi. She's the one that introduced me to AuthorTube, and she's one of maybe 3 AuthorTubers on here that actually have a personality. But I really had to disagree with her on this one because I almost found it discouraging watching her video. It makes it sound like it's so much more work than it actually is. So if you like this video, like it. If you disliked it, fine. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm totally off the wall and I forgot to cover something, or if there's a hint of truth in anything I might have said in this video. I will see you guys next time.
Welcome to the jungle.